A couple of hours passed, though it didn't feel like time moving forward so much as something slowly ripening. The sun had begun its descent, not yet low, but no longer at its height. The light had softened, turning from hard brightness to a deeper gold that lay across the grass and the wagons and the faces of those who waited. Shadows stretched longer now, thin at first, then slowly widening, as if the world itself were beginning to lean. No one spoke of it, but all felt it. It came without warning, and yet not unexpectedly. From the foot of the ridge a sound rose, low at first, then swelling, carried across the open land. A horn. It was the deep, hollow voice of a cow horn, drawn out and steady, its call bending slightly in the wind as it travelled. It didn't startle, it didn't command, but it called, once, then again, and again. After the third call a voice followed, aged but strong, shaped by years of speaking into open air. Come, it called. The word carried. Come, come, ever come. The phrase was repeated, not hurried, not forced, but with a rhythm that felt older than the voice itself, as if it had been spoken in the same way for longer than any of them could remember. Again the horn sounded. The camp didn't erupt into motion. It gathered. People rose where they stood or sat. Conversations ended without needing to be finished. Hands brushed garments into place, adjusted cords, lifted what needed to be carried and left what didn't. The young women came together almost without looking for one another. Wena found Ausōsā first, her fingers briefly touching her arm. Danui followed, already holding the small vessel that had not left her side since morning. Heria came last, her expression bright, though quieter now than before. No one spoke. There wasn't much left to say. They moved with others toward the ridge, not in strict lines, not in ordered ranks, but in a loose gathering that gradually became something more like a procession as it approached the path. The elders were ahead, their pace measured, and behind them the rest followed, families, youths, children walking close, all drawn upward along the same narrow way. The grass parted beneath their steps. The wind moved with them. The first of the smaller fires came into view. It had already been lit. Flame moved low and steady within the ring of stones, not yet high, but alive, its smoke rising in a thin, wavering line. The scent reached them before the heat did, carrying with it the sharpness of dry wood and something else beneath it, something sweet and bitter from the herbs that had been cast into it. The elder who had sounded the horn stood beside it now, the cow horn lowered at his side. He didn't speak again, he only watched. The first to step forward did so without hesitation. One of the older men approached, his movements calm, and passed through the fire, not touching it, but leaping cleanly over the low flames, his body carried in a single practiced motion. He didn't look back. And others followed. When it was their turn, Wena glanced once at the fire, then at Ausōsā, a flicker of something, excitement perhaps, passing across her face. "Together?" she murmured. Ausōsā nodded. They stepped forward. The heat met them first, brushing against their skin, dry and immediate. The flames shifted as they approached, as if aware, as if answering. For a heartbeat, Ausōsā felt the pull of it, the brightness, the movement, the edge between what was solid and what wasn't. And then they leapt. The ground met her feet again, firm, unchanged, and yet not. And she didn't look back either. The second fire waited further up the path. It burned a little higher, its flames more restless, the smoke thicker now. The air around it shimmered, and the scent of herbs was stronger, sharper. This time Heria went first, her leap quick and sure, laughter catching briefly in her breath as she landed. Danui followed more slowly, her movement deliberate, as if marking something inward as much as outward. Again Ausōsā leapt. The heat lingered longer this time, clinging for a moment before releasing. The third fire stood closest to the crest. Its flames rose higher still, fed by thicker wood, its smoke drifting low before lifting into the wind. The light of it flickered against the gathering dusk of the descending sun, fire answering fire. Here the line slowed, not from hesitation, but from awareness. This was the last crossing. Ausōsā felt it before she saw him. Ekon stood a short distance ahead, waiting his turn. His hair still fell unbound. The marks of his time away hadn't yet been set aside. He stepped forward. For a moment the flames rose, drawn upward as if by his movement. Then he leapt, clean, certain, without break. Ausōsā followed. The heat surged, stronger than before, pressing against her skin and her breath and her chest. And then it was behind her. The path opened, the crest of the ridge lay before them. At the top, the sacred space had been marked. Stones had been laid in a great rectangle, their edges defining a boundary that needed no wall. Within it, the ground had been cleared, the grass cut low, the earth exposed and waiting. At its center stood the great fire, unlit still, but immense. The wood rose in a carefully shaped form, layered and ordered, reaching upward like something already alive, awaiting only the breath that would awaken it. The procession slowed. At the edge of the marked space, the elder raised his hand, and they stopped. For a moment, there was only the wind, and then as one they turned. The sun hung low now, nearing the horizon, its light deep and full, filling the sky with gold that edged toward red. It seemed larger here, seen from the height of the ridge, unobstructed, resting at the edge of the world. All faced it. Danui stepped forward slightly, lifting the vessel she carried. And others did the same. Water caught the light as it moved, clear and shining, alive in the hands that held it. The elder spoke again, his voice lower now, but no less steady. Words passed, old, shaped by repetition, not all of them understood, but all of them known. Thanks, calling, recognition. And then together they poured. The water fell to the earth in thin streams, darkening the dust where it touched, vanishing almost at once into the ground. But in that brief moment, it held the light of the sun, catching it, breaking it, and returning it. From sky to earth, from earth to sky. Ausōsā felt it move through her, the memory of the morning's dew, the chill of the stream, the heat of the fires she had crossed, all gathered now in this single turning. The day had reached its edge. The fire waited, and the night was about to begin. For a moment after the libations, no one moved. The last drops of water had vanished into the earth, and the people still stood facing the lowering sun, its light now deep and heavy, resting along the edge of the world. The wind moved softly across the ridge, carrying the scent of grass, of smoke from the lower fires, of something waiting to be awakened. And then, slowly, they turned back toward the sacred space. Ausōsā's gaze drifted across the gathered people. It struck her then, not suddenly but with a quiet fullness, how they seemed to belong to one another in that very moment. The garments they wore, simple and pale, caught the last light of the day so that they stood not as separate figures, but as a single brightness gathered upon the hill. The undyed cloth, clean and loose upon their bodies, moved gently in the wind, softening every edge. White, or near to it. Not adorned, not heavy, only light and living, as if they had set something aside, as if they had come closer to what they were meant to be on this day. At the edge of the stone-marked space, the elder raised his hand again. "Not yet," he said. His voice carried. Before him, set upon a low stand of stone, stood a wide bronze bowl. Its surface had been polished until it held the light like still water. Within it, clear liquid rested, water drawn and kept apart, untouched since it had been set there. One by one, they were called forward. Danuwi stepped first. She dipped her fingers into the bowl and touched them to her forehead, pressing the coolness there for a moment. Then to her mouth, then to her hands, turning them slightly as the water traced along her skin. Purified, not by washing alone, but by marking. Others followed. Wena, her movements unhurried, her eyes lowered as she touched brow, lips, and palms. Heria, with a brief intake of breath at the chill, though she didn't smile now. Ausōsā stepped forward when her turn came. The bronze caught her reflection for an instant, distorted, wavering, before her fingers broke the surface. The water was cool. She touched her forehead, her mouth, her hands. For a moment she held them there, feeling the faint trace of dampness, as if something unseen had been placed upon her. And then she stepped back. When all had passed, the elder lowered his hand. "Enter," he said. They crossed the boundary. Within the marked space, the air felt different. No wall enclosed it, no barrier stood, but still the crossing was felt. The ground beneath their feet was bare, the grass cut away, the stones that marked the edges held their places in silence, defining what words did not need to explain. At the center, the great fire waited. Dreugos stepped forward. In his hands he carried a small flame, taken from one of the lesser fires below. It burned low and steady, cradled carefully as he approached the base of the great structure. No one spoke, and he knelt. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the flame touched. At first, only a thread of smoke rose, thin and uncertain. And then the fire took. It moved through the kindling as if it had been waiting there all along, catching, spreading, rising. The dry wood answered at once, and the carefully laid structure drew the flame upward, feeding it, shaping it. Within moments, the fire stood alive. Heat spread outward, light shifted. The gold of the sun met the living brightness of flame, and for a moment the two seemed to answer one another, sky and earth, each holding its own fire. The elder began to speak. The words came low, measured, shaped by repetition older than any single voice. Others joined, not all at once, but as if remembering something already known. The sound gathered, rising and falling in a rhythm that followed the breath, that followed the fire. Offerings were brought. Clarified butter, golden and thick, was lifted in small vessels. One by one it was cast into the flames. Each time it touched, the fire answered. A sudden leap of brightness, a deepening of the glow, a soft sound as the offering vanished into heat and light. The scent rose at once, rich and warm and unmistakable, carried outward on the evening air. Then came the resin, small pieces, dark and fragrant, placed carefully into the fire. The smoke changed, it thickened, sweetened, deepened, curling upward in pale strands before being taken by the wind. The scent spread across the ridge, filling the space between those gathered, settling into hair, into cloth, into breath. "To the kindreds," the elder said. "To the shining ones," others answered. For a time the chanting continued, the offerings given, the fire growing into its full strength. And then slowly the rhythm shifted. "Take hands," the elder said. There was a brief pause, no confusion, only the smallest hesitation, as if each person felt the weight of what came next, and then hands reached. Ausōsā felt Wena's fingers brush hers on one side, Heria's on the other. Around them, others did the same, forming a wide, uneven ring around the fire. The heat touched their faces now, steady and present. They began to move. Slowly at first, almost imperceptibly, the circle turned. One step, then another. The movement found its rhythm, guided by the fire at its center, by the voices that rose again, not in the same cadence as before, but in something lighter, flowing, carried more easily by breath. Songs. They rose and fell as the circle moved, voices weaving together, not always in perfect unison, but close enough that differences became part of the whole. They sang of the sun, its path, its strength, its turning. They sang of the twins, those who moved between worlds, who guided and who returned. The circle tightened, loosened, and breathed. The fire answered, its flames rising and shifting, casting light across faces, across hands still joined. Ausōsā felt the movement take her. Not thought, not decision, only the turning, the warmth of hands in hers, the heat of the fire, the voices rising around her. Then, at the edge of the circle, something changed. The movement didn't stop, but it slowed. Heads turned, voices softened. From beyond the stones, figures approached. They moved carefully, their pace measured, their attention fixed on what they led between them. The mare. She was covered now. A great cloth had been laid over her, falling along her sides, softening her shape, hiding her from full view. Only the line of her movement could be seen beneath it, the steady, living presence that remained unmistakable. The green woven earlier lay hidden beneath, but it was there. She stepped forward without resistance. The rope at her neck hung loose. At the boundary of the stones, the elder raised his hand once more. The circle stilled, the song faded, and slowly, with the same quiet care that had marked every step before, the mare was led into the sacred space. As the fire roared higher, faces flickering gold in the night, they felt themselves standing between worlds, between the human community and the greater powers that sustained it. The fire moved, and the mare stood, the circle held. And within that held space, two of the elders stepped forward. Dreugos was one of them. The other, older still, moved beside him with slow certainty, carrying a low clay vessel in both hands. Its surface was darkened with age and use, its rim worn smooth by years of touch. This wasn't newly made. It had been kept and guarded. They set it down near the fire, just within the boundary of heat and light. Another vessel was brought, a heavier one, sealed until now. When it was opened, a deep, sweet scent spread at once into the air, richer than the honey offered before, darker and fuller. What had been begun in light had lived through darkness. What had been set at the winter turning was now brought forth again. Dreugos knelt. Before him lay a shallow bowl of barley, roasted until its scent had deepened, then coarsely ground so that each piece still held its shape, its substance not lost but broken open. He took it in both hands, and for a moment he held it above the vessel. The chanting began again, low and measured, not rising and not falling, only continuing like a thread drawn through time. He let the barley fall. It struck the surface of the liquid with a soft, uneven sound, scattering and then settling. Some sank at once, others floated briefly before being drawn under, taking in what surrounded them. Grain into sweetness, earth into what had been gathered. The elder beside him lifted the vessel and tilted it slowly, pouring the mixture into a second clay container set just below. The liquid passed through a woven strainer, catching the larger fragments, letting the thickened drink flow downward in a steady stream, as if guided. When the first pouring was done, Dreugos gathered the soaked barley in his hands. He pressed, slowly and deliberately. The liquid ran from between his fingers, darkened now, changed, carrying with it what had been held within the grain. It fell into the vessel below in thick drops, each one drawn out with care. Nothing was taken quickly. Nothing was left unused. The chanting didn't break. Again he pressed. Again the last of it was drawn out, until only the emptied grain remained. Then came the milk. It was brought in a smaller vessel, fresh and pale, still carrying the warmth of what had given it. The elder poured only a little, no more than what was needed, into the drink below. It spread through the darker liquid in slow shifting lines, light into depth, softening and binding. Dreugos stirred, once, twice, thrice. The scent that rose was different now, not only sweet and rich, something fuller, grain, honey, milk, time, all held together, no part lost. Nectar, the elder said quietly. The word settled into the space. The vessel was lifted, held between them, not yet offered and not yet shared. The chanting softened and then faded. The fire moved. The mare stood. And the drink, made from what had passed through seasons, now waited with others, ready to take its place among what would be given and what would be received.